Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name's Connor Chadwick,
I'm Daniel Patton.
and on today's podcast, I'll be having discussions with James Sutton about Torchwood Clandestine II.
And then later on in the podcast, we'll be talking about the new Sherlock Holmes adventure, The Empty Hearse.
Indeed, and then capping it off, I'll be talking to Lewis Wheelhouse about the Henry Woodman Into the Storybook finale, which came out on New Year's Day.
So, Chatters, how are you doing?
Oh, interesting question. Interesting question indeed. Well, yes, indeed. Before I get into that, thank you to our Patreons, Anya, Pat, and Chelsea Lagan and Delta Effects. But the big question you've asked, how have I been? Incredibly ill.
Oh, sir.
Now, it's not really been much of a secret, shall we say, but we typically record the December and January vlogs, podcasts in quick succession because of the Christmas time and the New Year's time, and because these typically come out at the beginning of the month. We would not have time around New Year. It wouldn't exactly be easy for us to fit in this around family time. So it's the 15th of December as we record this now, so we haven't had Christmas, but it has been around 2 weeks since we recorded the last one. We wanted to leave it a little bit of time to breathe for, ourselves as well. But in that week gap, like last weekend, I had COVID.
Oh, no, sir.
But it wasn't like I have had COVID before. I think it was March 2022. I had COVID and I just felt a bit ugh for a day. This one, and I've deliberately not told you details on this so you could have genuine reactions in the podcast. I was sleeping like 16 hours a day, which is unlike me.
Oh, sir.
I was completely out of it. I was like, trying to get warm because you're shivering, and then suddenly you're overheating and sweating, and then you try and cool off again, and you start shivering again. It was one of those things where I just couldn't get to a comfortable temperature. And I thought maybe I can use this time to edit, but I just had no energy. It just knocked me out.
It completely just completely just took you back, man.
Yeah, I thought maybe if I try like being creative. So I opened up a script to start writing something, and I just couldn't. I just went and laid on the sofa and slept for 2 hours instead. And then when I was just not in the right frame of mind. I think, and annoyingly, initially I thought I'd made myself ill from not sleeping enough, which is something I've had for the last couple of years. If I stay up past 1 or 2 a.m., when I wake up the next day, I'll suddenly have a really sniffly nose and be really unwell. And that's what happened, not like a couple of Thursdays ago, so a week and a bit ago. I stayed up till 3 a.m. working, and then the next day I thought I'll go to bed early, but I actually didn't get to bed till 3:30. And then I woke up on the Saturday, I believe this would have been Saturday 7th or something like that, maybe. And I just couldn't think, and I'm having brain fog. I was just like all over the place, and I was like that until Wednesday. Um, I was meant to be at work, but luckily I was able to get the time off me to recover. But I just lost time. I couldn't figure out what day it was or anything. It was so bad, and I've still got a bit of a tickly throat now. But I went through a period of time where I had, and this was what was really frustrating. I ordered the new sonic screwdriver for Joy to the World.
Oh, it's sort of like pink and orange one.
Yes, because I had the blue standard one. I thought, well, this is the exclusive one. They're only doing it in deluxe. I'll get this one. So therefore, I've got the original blue one, which is the original, and will probably get more use. Then I've got the pink one as a deluxe one, and I'll keep that more as a collector's thing.
Yeah.
When they can't deliver to my apartment, they've got like a postal room in the building
Yeah.
where they'll send it there, but they'll only hold it there for a few days, or like 7 days. And I'd left it there for 7 days because I'd just run out of, being ill and everything. I was just like losing track of everything. I would have had to have paid £50 for a holding fine. So I proceeded to have to get into outdoor clothing, I then wore three face masks
Oh, sir.
because I thought I've not had to, I remember back in the COVID days
Yeah.
when even the face mask wouldn't be so great at holding stuff back. It would give you like it would give you a percentage chance of not being infected. But I thought I just do not. This is awful. I don't want to give it to anyone else. So I wore like three layers of face mask to try and like block it in as much as I could. Or at least if I were breathing, it was breathing down onto my chest rather than out at people. So I had to walk over, and as you know, sir, from where I live, it's a little walk just down the street.
Yeah.
I could not walk in a straight line.
Oh, mate. So
And
it probably like your but like just being able to functionally like get.
yeah, but then I got to the door and I was so out of breath. I genuinely, it felt like I'd run there. And I was just walking slowly. And I thought, God, this is bad. And I was really worried for a bit that it would affect my lungs long term. Like, I was really sitting there going, this isn't good because my, when I'm on site or out working, it's not like I go to a different office and sit down. I walk around, I do a lot of movement.
Yeah.
And I thought, God, if this affects me here, I'll just end up becoming a vegetable. Luckily, it hasn't. I have been on site once since, and I'm going back on site tomorrow. And I've been fine. I walked to the train station. I was fine. I did everything there, and it was all good. So I'm all good on that front, which is good. But yeah, I was just really wobbly and all over the place. I got the parcel, walked back. But man, it was a strange one.
Yeah. Like because I think that like, that's the first time COVID ever properly affected you since the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've still got a bit of a irritable, tickly throat at the moment, which has just been a very odd one to experience.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, hopefully it's hopefully for a speedy recovery and it doesn't take any sort of long time symptoms.
no, fingers crossed, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. But yeah, how about yourself, sir? I know obviously we've made it known that it hasn't in fact been a month, but since you last recorded the podcast, how have you been?
It's been all right. I started a new job and that's been
Indeed.
taking up most of my time now. It's a more fixed time away from home position, so I have less time than I probably want to be creative and all that.
Mm.
But it's all good. We're just excited for Christmas at this point. Again, because we're recording this 10 days before Christmas, so um
Yeah.
just kind of days at this point, just to get a nice break from it all. As I'm pretty
Indeed.
sure you are as well, sir.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've created a bit of a backlog of editing to do over the Christmas period while hopefully not working. But I think it's already been alluded to me that I'll be working over Christmas anyway, so fun. But I was hoping that maybe I'll be able to get quite a bit of editing done. Because at Sweet Daniel, as you'll know, I've been getting the cover arts made in advance for projects,
Yes.
which I'm going to be mass editing over Christmas because I won't be able to get anything recorded because obviously Christmas and New Year. So yeah, I thought I'd create a backlog of editing to do so that I'm distracted.
Yeah.
So for the last month and a bit, I've been working purely on writing and trying to get things recorded so that I don't have to think about it later, basically. So that's my plan for Christmas is to kind of chill out and get on with some editing, but in a casual manner.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting ready, prepare for next year, and just try and relax where you can, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But speaking about relaxing while editing, do you know where that didn't happen?
I like how that's a segue you chose to. Or that's how you chose to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yes,
obviously, I'm talking about Clandestine II.
which was an absolute joy for you to edit.
Oh, so much fun.
It,
So
it,
much fun.
it was never documented otherwise that you had nothing but absolute joy editing these absolute phenomenal stories.
Indeed, indeed. In fact, I only edited about half of the episodes anyway,
God help you
but
all.
they were the longest ones.
Oh, this is me saying there are the Clandestine 2 is incredible. I
Yes,
know it took a toll out of you and the other editors.
it did. It did very much, but we're very proud of it. We're very proud of it. Shall we go and listen to myself talking to James Sutton?
Yes, please.
Overton Audios presents
There's a part of me that's really grown to love this mental team of ours. There's a part of me that hopes one day they'll allow me to stop before this goes to a point of no return. But maybe that day has already passed.
But she's actually quite pretty looking. Why would she say yes to you?
You're acting fucking weird.
I always act weird.
We're going to have a lot of fun, Tommy Benton.
It's the Cybermen.
You're welcome with us.
You're never going to take over Torchwood.
We're already dead.
Who was that?
The Queen. She's assigned us with a special task of locating 4 politicians who are absent from Parliament this morning.
Fraser! Fucking hell!
You have done excellently, my son.
Now what?
Before anything happens, I want to know why you did it.
All I have to say is I'm truly sorry for whatever happens next.
Torchwood, Clandestine, Part 2. Coming 14th of December, 2024 at 12 p.m.
Wonderful. How simply divine.
And welcome back to the podcast, and I'm here with Mr. James Sutton.
Hello.
How are you,
Thanks
sir?
for having me. I'm good. I'm just in the last podcast style, I think I was eating a pizza or waiting
The pizza,
for a pizza to arrive.
pizza arrived just as we were wrapping up talking about Clandestine Part 1.
I've received a fast food burger. I don't know if you do sponsorships on this place, but I've received a burger from a fast food restaurant that has just arrived just before we started this podcast segment. So it's all food oriented, but we're here to talk about.
Well, in a
Torchwood, I believe.
way, isn't it just so apt that the ending of Part 1 ended with the receiving of some fast food, albeit a pizza, and now Part 2 of Clandestine Discussions resumes with another fast food beverage, and it's almost like they're connected, like a Part 1 and a Part 2, much like this Torchwood volume.
And I haven't had a meal since the pizza, so this has been a long and arduous fast for me.
You're committed to the bit.
I am committed to the bit. I am. I have waited to eat until Torchwood was done.
Yeah, if you went on camera now, you'd just be like a grey Skeletor with faded pupils going, "Feed me."
Yeah, I look like Imhotep from The Mummy before he's been given some
skin.
Oh, there's spoilers. Spoilers for
The Mummy 1999.
Yeah, or I don't know if the 1932 version or the Hammer Horror ones had it in as well, but yeah.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Anyway, we got to The Mummy.
Yes. Anyway, today we're discussing The Mummy and The Mummy Return. No, we're talking about Clandestine 2.
You can watch Arsenal of the Gods.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. We're talking about finally, after 2 years of pre-production and production, Clandestine 2, which wasn't, of course, as we established in the last time we talked about this, it wasn't meant to be a 2-parter. We were hoping to do one long stream of 8 episodes, but having finished Part 2, I think we can agree that there was no way we would have been able to have done it in one long stream like that.
No, we it was very ambitious to have done it this way, but we got it done, and I think this was the best way to have gone about it, because it gave us time to focus on the overall quality rather than having to churn them out.
Yeah. I mean, every episode is over an hour.
Yeah, I know. Is that like a record for your things, or?
Yeah, it's the long. It'll end up being the long. Yeah, actually, in terms of a 4-episode volume, it will be the longest volume, like 4-episode volume I've ever done.
And it's an 8-episode volume, so
yeah. When you add that, up together as well, like you kind of imagine that it'll line up that way. If it lines up to roughly 8 hours, then it kind of balanced out, because obviously there were some episodes that were only like 40 to 50 minutes. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Because we are recording this in what people call advance, so we don't actually know.
Currently, despite this coming out 2025, we're currently recording this in 2024, but we're recording it about 2 days before Halloween.
Yeah, so we won't even had Christmas or New Year yet.
No, or bonfire night, or children in need, I guess. Or,
yes,
I guess, or the anniversary of Doctor Who. You know that thing. That
was last year, wasn't it?
It's an annual thing.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. But yes, with Clandestine 2, we definitely pushed forward to develop as much of the story as possible regarding all the stuff that was established from Part 1. Part 1 sets up small little breadcrumbs for certain elements. Like, for example, the Tommy, Chris, and Johnny love triangle.
Yes.
That is... something that sort of began in episode 1 and kind of got referenced, I think, a bit in 3. But then it really sort of comes to a head in at least the final 3 episodes.
Yes. Well, it was mentioned originally, sort of set up in Volume 2 when there was sort of the startings of Chris and Tommy getting together, with mention of this Johnny character who he was sort of seeing. Johnny was actually a remnant from the original plan for Volume 2. Volume 2 had to sort of shift due to the whole Nexus point thing that we ended up having to go with in the end for Volume 2. So originally there was a script for Volume 2, literally episode 1 of Volume 2, where we were meant to meet a sort of informant/lover of Fraser's called Johnny. And then when we shifted things around, Johnny got turned into this character because we ended up sort of liking Johnny, which is why in episode 3, Regression, he knows a little bit about sort of the underside of alien life on Earth. That's because he was an informant in the previous script, and so he was meant to know sort of things like that. So, so the love triangle been sort of casually mentioned in Volume 2, sort of set up had gone from there, where there was mentions of Chris and Tommy. And then we thought it would be interesting in this volume to really go for it and go, okay, actually, let's throw some drama in there where Chris has decided to get with Johnny, and see how sort of Tommy ends up reacting to that, and where we can take it. Plus, of course, if that wasn't complicated enough, you've then got the fact that Chris has got to betray all of them. So that very quickly became a thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of storylines in this particular series for the story of Clandestine. It really lives up to its name. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background in very clandestine manners. So, we've obviously got Fraser. Fraser's very much in this series, because obviously Torchwood Nexus was very much Fraser and Lizzie's story. Whilst they still have, episodic stories, Fraser's story arc was more about trying to keep a chaotic team together. He was trying to be the glue for Torchwood. Meanwhile, you had everybody else. I mean, I think Lizzie had a bit of a... I'm not saying that doesn't have a story anyway, but her arc was her recovery from her accident, and that was mainly covered in Clandestine 1. In Clandestine 2, she has, in a good way, a newfound confidence. Like, she's more outgoing, more confident. She's more willing to have the banter back with Fraser, whereas before, I remember, especially when writing the first volume, Torchwood Rebirth, she was very nervous, very closed off, and even throughout Torchwood Nexus, she was still quite a bit formal about things. It's only really towards here where she started to feel comfortable, I feel, and feel like she's a part of things.
This was something I was keen to show the sort of development of. In Volume 1, Fraser is very much trying to do things properly. He's constantly saying he wants to be better than the old Torchwood, and he wants to do things like that. a spanner gets thrown in the works when, of course, he gets thrown through a nexus point and ends up somewhere else rather than where he's meant to be. And then he's having to deal with the ramifications of that. Lizzie, of course, as we said, was sort of shy and timid in the first one, but then she's kind of almost sort of taken out of her shell a little bit when she realizes, oh, the rules are kind of out of the window. Like, I'm not just normal and here to impress my boss anymore. Like, he's kind of seeing me whilst also I'm now in another universe without my family. Like, this has gone beyond my paycheck. I'm now separated from my family for the rest of my life, kind of thing, because of this job. And it's one of those things that I found quite interesting in Volume 2 to sort of explore, is kind of Fraser and Lizzie's story trying to hold it together after being thrown through the Nexus point. But of course, following on from that, as you say, it was nice to sort of have, because I was focusing more so on the Chris and Tommy sort of angle in this volume. It was nice that Fraser and Lizzie still had stuff to do throughout the volume, where Lizzie's, as you say, recovering and slowly gaining confidence, which was sort of to almost mirror sort of Gwen's development, where she starts off obviously, as a shy kind of police officer who's joined the team, and then, starts throwing chisels at Owen and stuff like that, where, she slowly starts to find her feet after making mistakes. And then by series 2, she's having goes at Jack for having, where the hell have you been? That kind of thing. So it was nice to kind of see them settling in. I mean, the main thing across this volume as well is, some people may have been able to tell from the last episode there, things are unraveling. The idea of Fraser's, we're going to do things better than the old Torchwood, has very much unraveled now, and there's some darkness that is creeping into him, and the rest of the team as well are starting to get a bit more kind of classical Torchwood in the way they're kind of behaving, rather than the prim and proper sort of way they were in the beginning. I mean, Tommy's kind of stayed fairly similar, but everyone else has kind of, loosened their collars a little bit and so forth.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. I think Tommy goes through some, like, he definitely goes through a sort of mini story arc of his own because of the episode Dependency, the first episode of Part 2, and then of course that kind of bleeds a bit into Intelligence. With his mood is very kind of unsettled in Intelligence, which has been an interesting one to have a look at.
Yeah, I mean, Dependency is what I'm really happy with, and that was actually one of the original Torchwood ideas, so I was really glad that we could bring that back. I mean, Neurotoxin was like episode 4 of the so when we were originally writing this Torchwood series, we had the idea for the live action fan film series. That was like episode, I think that was episode 4. I think we wrote that in like 2016. Like, it's been like 8 years or so.
Yeah, it was you and didn't you say it was you and Dom originally, Dominic G. Martin, who wrote Neurotoxin?
Yeah, me and Dom sat down on Skype back in the day and wrote the whole thing. Dom wrote it whilst I dictated it sort of to him, in the sense of like we were.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. For those who don't know, I'm getting better at it, but I do struggle with
writing,
like getting through writing blocks sometimes. So I find it really helpful for having someone who can just like type it down, and then I can go through and like resculpt it in the sort of edit. That's how I'm getting better at doing it myself. But
oh yeah. No, I just like, because obviously I mentioned it a couple of times on this podcast, but this has been a long process of about 2 years.
Across this volume, I've developed my writing style. Actually, like, this definitely went from being a kind of fan project I was working on to something I was really like really proud. I mean, I was always proud of it, but this volume started to feel like something different by the end of it. Like, it started to feel like we were going somewhere with it, in the sense of it being like more than just a kind of, I'm just doing this for fun. It felt like, this is actually something. We've got something here that's quite special, and I'm really excited to see where it goes, kind of thing. But also, every episode is an hour long. You know, it's the longest volume we've ever attempted. So,
but yeah, if we look at it roughly, the first 3 episodes are an hour and a couple of minutes each. So we'll say 3 hours 10 there, and then an hour and a half at the end. We're looking at nearly 5. We're looking at nearly 5 hours. It's probably more 4.5 if I'm honest, but it's a big lot of story to tell, and we've had a lot of reflections upon how it was done. I know that I think it drove us both insane once or twice trying to sort this out, because we had a bit. Because I mean, there's a whole story behind it. Like, Clandestine 1 got written so quickly. That was pretty much going, and then Dependency was the only one that was written, I think, 7 to 8 months before the other 3.
Yes,
and then we had a writer's block. You were busy. You ended up in Mississippi, I think it was, for the Science Center at one point.
I did. I was flown out to the St. Louis Science Center to give a talk for the 60th anniversary about props, which is on YouTube somewhere.
Well, that's the thing. But the 60th happened, and you were busy because what you do on this, what you do as a job is heavily connected to Doctor Who as well. So as a result, the 60th year was your one. I think I want to say I've never known you to be so busy, but you and I are quite busy people anyway.
Yeah, that was a really busy year though. Like, it was like constantly traveling about places. I mean, it still is to this day. I mean, I just came back from London MCM where we had our K9 roaming about, and then within a week or so I'll be off again on another plane. You know, it's one of those things where it's like the work keeps me busy, and that means that writing can sometimes be a difficult thing to actually find time to sit down, because I'm so often having to get up and go and do something kind of thing rather than doing that. But I found a period of time where it was like, okay, things have died down a bit. I got some time to sort of get through this and get it written. It was sort of like start of the year, I want to say, when it started to get like colder, so there was less things going on outside. But I mean, the main thing I think the issue was because we added extra episodes to Volume 3 because we didn't have as many in Volume 2, because the first 2 episodes of Volume...
it was that Volume 2 got kind of hijacked.
Yes.
Because of the Nexus storyline we had to do. It meant that this 8-episode volume is almost like the original Volumes 2 and 3.
Yes, so it kind of got a combination of what Volume 2 was meant to be like, mixed in with what Volume 3 was going to be, and then, I mean, we ended up with another 2 episodes anyway, because I think the issue was, at least, we went a bit ambitious. We had too many characters, I'm going to be honest and say it, we had too many characters, too many plot lines to wrap up in such a short space of time. If we had those original episodes in Volume 2 to actually develop them more. I can't remember if Jack Field was going to die earlier or whether he was going to always die.
No. We actually swapped characters around. Do you remember?
Yes. So basically, the plot lines that were meant to be wrapped up in Volume 2, we felt like we didn't have enough time to wrap them up in Volume 2 because of the half of it being spent on the Nexus Point thing, that we moved those plot lines into Volume 3 as well as the Volume 3 plot lines, which meant that then suddenly we had 2 volumes worth of plot lines to wrap up within 1 volume, which is why it became 2 volumes basically in itself, and every episode is an hour long, which isn't outrageous considering, you know, the length of most Big Finish Torchwood audios, or the actual show itself being, you know, 45 to 50-minute episodes each episode kind of thing. So it's like we weren't actually that far off having a genuine episode of Torchwood length. But
I'm just one man.
Well, you weren't. We managed to get the help of Aidan J. O'Connor and Abatha Louise.
Yes, we did. I begged them. I'll pay you anything. Just please help me. I think Abby ended up editing for part 1. She edited Playdate and Mother, and then for part 2, Aidan edited Dependency and Abby edited Intelligence. So they did the first 2. because Dependency was done quite early on, because that script also happened to be done quite early on.
Well, that was the one that was carried over from an idea I'd already had. So, like, that was one that had, like, pre-existed. Originally, it was going to be a different character from the original lot. It wasn't Tommy. But then I suddenly thought about the idea I'd originally had for this kind of depression vampire and just went, oh, that would work really well with what we're doing with the Tommy storyline currently, and brought it back.
Yes. That's very good.
Yes. Well, this series certainly put Tommy through the ringer, I'd say, as well. I mean, every character really gets put through the ringer in this series, but I don't think it's unfair to say probably Tommy gets it the worst out of all of them. I mean, from episode 1, him getting neurotoxined, through to episode 5, where he gets the life drained out of him after being basically bullied for an entire episode by all of his friends and family. And then the back half of the volume. And then he gets shot, obviously, by the guy he loves. After being nearly killed by the woman he loved. Like, Tommy had a really bad season this season.
Yeah, he needs to have a lie down now.
He did get a lie down, to be fair, in the end. Not much.
It was almost a permanent lie down, though.
Yeah, it was a forever lie down.
Yes, indeed. It's not a nap.
But he lived.
He did, much to his own dismay, probably. But no, we've got. I know I say this a lot, and you're not going to like me mentioning it. Which is, this volume had a lot riding on it. This volume was the barrier that stopped other volumes coming out.
Oh.
Yes, I'm talking, of course.
Oh God. I hate it.
Yeah, I know you do. It was, the thing is, it was written 2 to 3 years ago, fully recorded. It's been fully edited for nearly 2 years, and you would rather it be burned.
I would. I'd rather. What's his face? I mean, I'm not going to say his name, but him. I'd rather him hunt through Nigeria for various film studios or whatever it is, TV stations, to try and find the film reels of Mastermind Volume 3 before anyone to see the damn thing or listen to it. It has been a constant thorn in my side for the continuity errors it has put upon me, because it was written so far in advance. It has been a barrier upon my soul.
Well, now that Clandestine II was out, you can be relieved of that burden.
Technically I can't, because it's actually set after Volume 4.
Well, okay. Oh.
Technically, you're just releasing it. You should really wait until I finish Volume 4.
I can't leave it for another 4 years. Like, I can't make it go to a
4 years. Number 4. I thought you said number 4 years. I'm like,
no. We
That's right, babies. We're taking 2 times the length this time.
I'd just leave you to it at that point. If you told me it's going to take 4 years, I'd go, all right, let me know when you want to record it. Bye.
Yeah.
But no, that's going to be coming out in probably around May sort of time. In fact, actually, I think if it's all worked out, it may have already been announced. But we'll see.
Yeah.
There are also many other elements from the volume that have been interesting, such as, well, the episode called Retreat certainly brings forth a lot of intriguing moments for Chris and that general group running the spa.
Yes, it's definitely this. Let's think. I think Retreat is really the first church episode, like the first one where we really get a good look at who they are. I mean, obviously there's been flashbacks so far in kind of regression and a neurotoxin, and then a little bit with at the end of Mother. But I'd say this is the first one where it's centered. You're in the building with them for the entire story. This is the first time where you get to slightly peer behind the curtain at their bigger plan. And so that one was really interesting to sort of write, because it's not just focusing on the Torchwood team as a whole, it's focusing on this entire operation with, Becky and Simon Clark and so on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's been really interesting, is because there are obviously other parts for these characters to play later down the line. But this is like, even though obviously for ourselves we know they've been there the whole time, whereas this is their introduction, really. Where we only had them in cameos and after credits, and now here they are in the pre-titles.
Yeah, doing their thing. So this is really where it's starting to move into the next sort of phase, and then obviously, we have all of Betrayal, where you get a really good look at them because they're actually actively now out of the sort of shadows and firing guns at Torchwood team members. And so I'm very sort of excited to see where we go. Well, I know where we're going, obviously, but to see to see how it turns out, and see what people think of where we're going with it in the next volume.
Oh yeah, and also another episode I realised I hadn't mentioned at all. Intelligence. I've mentioned it on and off, but we haven't talked about the fact that we actually we got to see Fraser Ward and Torchwood face the Cybermen. Sort of a half sequel to Doomsday.
Yes, so Intelligence was kind of my answer to Cyberwoman. It was basically with Torchwood, the fan audio stuff we do. I try to. It's a fan audio series. That's the first thing. It's a fan series paying a sort of loving respect to the source material that we all like, and love. And so my thing with it is that I like to write episodes that are sort of in the same genre as episodes that appeared in Torchwood originally. Like Dependency is definitely a sort of Greek sparing gifts Adam episode where an alien entity has infiltrated the life of one of the Torchwood characters and has started to, make a mess of things, and it's up to Torchwood to kind of figure it out. There's little bits of crossovers. Like I think the kind of ending with Melissa is quite similar to. Obviously there's the bit at the end of Greek Sparing Gifts where they send Mary away, but there's also a bit like Keep Killing Susie, where they chase after Susie and actually have to shoot her to break the connection, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's where that kind of came from, and it's a kind of I tried to make it not a direct copy or anything like that, but there's episodes that I like to go, okay, this episode is that kind of episode from Torchwood, so that we kind of do that. We kind of do that with Doctor Who. There's so much source material with Doctor Who that you kind of go, what sort of Dalek story are you looking for? Oh yeah, well like Evil of the Daleks, where it was all kind of eerie, and you get to see more, or like Planet of the Daleks, where it's like a planet-wide story. People look to those sort of stories for references, especially when it comes down to especially when they, people have their favourite Dalek stories, for example, in the same way that people have their favourite Torchwood stories that you're always going to take influence from. Yeah, exactly. And so Intelligence was Cyberwoman, basically, but Cyberwoman was it's a sequel to Army of Ghosts Doomsday, where we find out what Yanto was doing in the battle, what happened to Lisa, and it's then Torchwood dealing with this remnant of Torchwood 1. And so with this, my thought was basically, a lot of people I like Cyberwoman. I'm going to come out and say it publicly. I think it's fine. I think it's a fine story. I think the only thing I disagree with is probably the costume design of the Cyberwoman, and even then, that's not even that bad. There's just two questionable features of the costume, which I kind of go, well, why would the Cyberman do that? Why would they give her high heels and a bra? Like, why wouldn't they just, give her normal feet and cut those off? Because what are they going to use them for? you know. So that was the only thing I find really questionable. Other than that, I think it's a very interesting story with Yanto. Originally, that was going to be a later story in the series rather than it being like episode 4, I think it is.
Yeah, it is episode 4,
it was meant to be like later down the line. And Yanto was meant to be sneaking in and out of the base the whole time, collecting these parts to actually rebuild the cyber conversion unit and all this kind of stuff, and help Lisa, I believe it was something along those lines. And then it was going to be revealed that Yanto was kind of the villain of season 1, and then that got changed around, and then it got put earlier on, and then it kind of means that Yanto doesn't serve a purpose for the rest of the season because they got rid of his arc, which is really interesting to kind of see. He does kind of just fade into the background of vaguely doing things. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. My sort of thing with that is I wanted to write the story that I kind of went, oh, I would have liked to have seen this from the back of that. Like taking the same sort of concept of something from Torchwood 1 escaped the battle and bringing that to that. And I just sort of sat down and I thought, what if Cybermen had, like when Torchwood 1 fell, a lot of people sort of ran into there and sort of, you know, salvaged whatever they could from the wreckage. We'd already seen something like that in Memorial where a unit had salvaged a big sort of vault and a bunch of other things from Torchwood's ruins. But with this, it was like, okay, MI6 also did the same thing, and this is where it went for them. And I just thought there was a lot of cool visuals you could kind of do. Obviously, I know it's an audio, but there's lots of cool visuals you could have where all of the operatives of MI6 had been taken over with the head phones. I'd always found it interesting that in Torchwood 1, you only obviously see like Prima Agyeman and then I've forgotten the name of the other two, but the other two guys there with the earpieces in, and I just thought it'd be really interesting if MI6 was not quite as good as Torchwood, which meant they'd been completely taken over, and you kind of walk into a building full of people, all with the earpieces on, sat in the dark, kind of, you know, at computers, waiting for the Cybermen's command kind of thing. And I thought that would be interesting to do, but I've rambled quite a lot now, so
well, I was going to say,
where were we going with this?
I was going. Well, you were talking about how with Torchwood episodes that you come up with, you base them on existing stories by making a mishmash. I was going to make an educated guess on what Retreat is based on.
Go on.
Reset.
Yes. So Retreat is Reset. In the sense of they go into
because it's an experimental drug. You then also have Fraser and Lizzie go in undercover.
Yes.
To test it, and they do gets used on them, and well, while they're under, you have the rest of the team infiltrating.
Yes. See, that's the thing. Take that formula and go, there we go. This is that type of episode. Now, of course, whilst you have said that, a lot of other things happened in that story, which means whilst I have based the framework on that story to go, okay.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's a carbon copy. It's not, because the context of the characters and the storyline behind it are different. Because in Reset, it was just a pharmaceutical company. In this relates to key characters where they are actively betraying their friends, and that changes the dynamic. It's also, in terms of that, it's nothing to do with aliens or anything like that. It's just experimental drugs that are then affecting the people, that the people such as the team as well. It's the tension isn't about, oh, look at the aliens we got to free. It's, we're in the lion's den, so to speak, and the villains are actually winning. And that's what's interesting.
That's the thing as well. The team are obviously like starting to become aware that something's going on. They know there's a mole inside Torchwood and all this kind of stuff. But the interesting thing is they walk into that building looking for these missing politicians, and they have no clue that they are walking into their main villain's place. They don't know that Chris or Jack or anyone is sort of sitting, waiting in the wings inside that building for them. They just assume this is another one of those missions. So they walk very unprepared into the mouth of a dragon, basically, a sleeping beast kind of thing.
Yeah,
and exactly. But going back to intelligence is, it's a Cyberman story. What I find interesting about it is just other than the parasites from fragments that we saw in Volume 2, Episode 3, this is the first proper Doctor Who or Torchwood wider monster we've actually brought in. I try really hard not to have it rely on existing monsters too much. I like to make new ones up rather than having it be.
But you'd be surprised how rarely we at Overton Audios we actually do Cyberman stories.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted a Cyberman story because I feel like Torchwood is so intrinsically linked to them in my mind. Like, obviously, the whole Battle of Canary Wharf thing is a massive thing in the history of Torchwood. Cyberwoman, because Torchwood rarely brought in monsters from Doctor Who. Like, there's the Hoiks showing up at one point. You know, there's the Star Poet from the Sarah Jane Adventures, which actually started in Torchwood, so it's the other way around, that Sarah Jane had a Torchwood alien in it. And very rarely do we actually see anything actually cross over that much. I mean, they obviously meet Daleks in Stolen Earth, Journey's End, but obviously that's them crossing over. Like, you know, obviously Fraser's met, like, I can't remember if I met Omega, but I was in the 60th where we had, you know, Omega and so forth. But in Torchwood itself, the original series, the only thing I really remember seeing is, oh my god, there's a Cyberwoman. You know, there's a Cyberman adjacent, you know, entity. There's toys of her, you know, that kind of thing. That's really exciting. So to me, Cybermen and Torchwood go hand in hand. And that's why I was really keen that, okay, if we're doing it, we're doing a proper Cyberman story where it's, you know, they've infiltrated a building, they're stomping around, converting people, you know, it's you know, classical Cyberman story.
For me,
and I was also very keen.
For me though, what was really I felt really special about Intelligence was the Cyberman interaction with Fraser and Tommy, because I always think back to that moment in Cyberwoman with Owen's reaction to seeing the conversion unit.
Yes,
because even though he's never shown that he was ever there, we know that Yanto was. It's shown in that episode that he was there and he used to work at Torchwood London. But for Owen,
interject for a hot second here.
Yeah.
Does anyone ever think about the fact that obviously Gwen's Welsh and she works on the team, but does anyone ever think about the fact that Yanto is the only Welsh person on that team and he was the one that came from London?
Well, yeah, I mean that isn't it explained? it's explained as to why he did, isn't it?
Yeah, he wanted to help Lisa. That's why he did it. He wanted to get in with Torchwood so he could use their technology to help and hide Lisa. That was the point of why he came over.
Yeah, he went back home and found Torchwood there. Torchwood 3 had survived, and they wanted
that was in Coffee, wasn't it? And and then obviously a bit in Fragments. But I just found that funny. I was thinking about it the other day, going, there's one Welsh guy on this team other than Gwen, who's obviously new to the team. That means Owen, Susie, Tosh, and Jack are all just not Welsh, and they work at the Welsh branch. And the only Welsh guy there moved there to work there. And he's like the newest addition to the team alongside the other Welsh person who's the newest addition.
I don't think it's never really fully. I mean, in Fragments, we're going off on a bit of a tangent, but nonetheless,
we are. We'll digress back to your point,
in Fragments, was Owen ever in Wales?
I don't know if he I don't know if it was
because
really
I don't remember anyone else being Welsh.
No, I don't remember anyone else being Welsh.
If we're going into if we're going into Torchwood continuity here, Jack was for about, I think it was 3 years, so from 2000 to 2003, Torchwood 3 wasn't really operating properly because the entire team were killed. And Jack and Jack created the team that we see in Series 1 over the course of about 3 to 4 years. I believe it was something that Tosh was the first person, maybe. Owen was brought in next, and then Susie. We're never really shown Susie, are we?
I think Susie was there longer.
Oh, so she was the first one.
Well, she was second in command, which implies that she was there the longest, and
okay.
It was Owen. Was it Owen?
Yeah, because Owen got made second in command after Susie died.
So I reckon Jack, then Susie, then Owen came in, and then Tosh, and then Owen covered, and then Tosh covered for Owen. Was it on her second week she covered for him?
Was it the other way around? Yeah, and that was technically set in 2006 because of Aliens in London and the year pushed forward.
Yeah. Anyway, back to intelligence, but
so what I was saying about intelligence was, I adore that moment when I saw it in Cyberwoman of Owen reacting to the conversion unit, even though you had no idea if he was there or not, because he's not, obviously, like we just talked about, accents.
Yeah.
You have no idea of his history. His history isn't in Wales. So you don't know where he was during that event. Even then, he was probably actually a part of Torchwood 3 at that point. But it was still something that shook the Institute to a point where their main headquarters was down permanently as a result. It never picked up again, and that's something that really, affected them. But seeing Owen display that fear as a fellow Torchwood member, after we as an audience saw what happened to the main one, I really liked seeing the replication with Fraser and Tommy when they reacted, because Tommy, his surname carries the weight and history behind what Sergeant Benton has probably experienced.
Sergeant Benton's first story was the invasion in 1968, which means he goes right back to the beginning. I mean, John Levine actually started his career, I believe, as a Cyberman in the Moon Base, or I think it was the Moon Base. It was that or Tomb of the Cybermen, one of the two or both of them. So John Levine and John Benton have had a long history with the Cybermen, and so Tommy Benton is more than aware of what a Cyberman is in that regard.
There's actually it's one of those really interesting things, isn't it? When you look at the fact that even though Tommy's never met them before, he is aware of the family connection, and that technically, even though he's never had an experience with them, the Cybermen and the Benton family go way back. But also from Fraser's perspective, because he's technically he's leader. For him, that must be terrifying for any sort of leader. The thing that destroyed the organization you work for before has come back, and you've not faced them yet.
Well, Fraser has faced them. He says that he saw Cybermen before, but not like this one. And that's because Fraser was a soldier in unit during 2015. Obviously, that's when when Memorial was set. So he was a unit soldier before 2015, and so whilst we don't necessarily
Memorial was set in 2014. 2006 was the Torchwood Cyberman invasion. We don't know where he is.
Heaven.
Huh?
Death in Heaven. When there's Cybermen around St. Paul's and people coming out of the grave and all that kind of stuff, that's when Fraser, we don't necessarily always stick to the show's canon, but in my head, he was around for that one, so he saw the Iron Men Cybermen.
Okay, yeah,
that's what the reference is to that. Basically, is that he was a unit soldier during the Capaldi era, Matt Smith era, sort of thing, and so that's what the Cybermen he saw. But he's aware of the older design from the Battle of Canary Wharf, because 2006 felt a bit too far away.
I suppose, in that regard as well, he doesn't, as a unit soldier, he has his own responsibilities as a soldier. But in this scenario, he is the authority that's standing in their way.
Yes, so that's the thing. So he's just a soldier initially. I'm not saying he was there because he wouldn't have been, but because we don't obey the canon. But if you were to go to Death in Heaven, he would have been one of the guys pointing guns alongside Kate Stewart, marching up to the Cybermen when she throws the Cyberhead down, that kind of thing. He would have been involved in something like that. Whatever our equivalent of that was, that's what he would have been doing at the time. So I've kind of put it down that Unit have faced the Cybermen at some point during Fraser's time at Unit when he was a unit soldier. But I was obviously keen to bring back the 2006 Cybermen because I felt like Torchwood is so, to me at least, tied, although obviously it is, but it's tied with the RTD era. And so to fully honour that, I wanted to have the proper voices, the proper Cybermen looks and all that kind of stuff stomping around and it being them, because that's the one I wanted to sort of fight as a kid. And you're completely right with obviously the way Fraser reacts as well, because, I mean, in particular the Owen thing, that's the scene I base it off of. Owen is my favourite character, and Fraser, whilst you may not seen it yet, you might have catched a glimpse of him starting to move in the direction of it at the end of Betrayal there. He is a character that is sort of Owen Harper-esque. And so
Clandestine 2 overall just breaks any form of good behaviour he has left.
Yes, yeah, that was the thing I found funny. When I used to say, "Oh, Fraser's a bit like an Owen character," people go, "Is he?" I go, "You wait." I think if you listen to Arsenal of the Gods, which is actually the story that we've got that's set. I mean, obviously there's the Cravat volume as well, where he's a little bit more sort of he's playing things close to his chest because he doesn't want to interfere with time and stuff. But Arsenal of the Gods, where Fraser's on his own for the entire story, and that's set like 2023, I think it is. I think it's set like last year, basically. Yep. That's the furthest down the timeline we've been with him in a Torchwood only story. The way he acts there is a lot different to the way he acts in Torch. You know, he's sort of a bit more. I'm a little bit more carefree, a little bit more funny, a little bit more kind of less.
Yeah,
like,
whereas in the early stuff, Fraser's very stoic. He's very much like, yes, I am in charge. Whereas
he's very uptight. He's very sort of prim and proper. You know, he's not.
I feel for him. By the end of Betrayal, I'm just like, yeah, I don't blame you.
By the end of Betrayal, he's ramming cars off roads, punching people in faces.
But like by the end, no, I'm talking about like the final scene when he's like, we did it, Lizzie, and she's like, I'm leaving, and he goes, right, okay, okay. Yeah. Anyway, at least I've got you, Tommy, and he goes, haha, you're single now. He goes, yes, I am. Anyway. Like he's so done. I listened back to that scene and he's really confused at first, and when she explains herself, he doesn't even fight. He just goes, all right. Like he's just he's just had the longest night of his life. He's lost everything. He's like, fine, okay, fine, you go too then. You know, whatever. Sure.
Yeah, all right then, why not? Go on. Off you go.
But little do we know, little do the audience know, especially, how much that episode has changed him forever. I'm looking forward to what we've got planned for the future with the characters, because we're going to see things change. We're going to see characters grow, and to an extent, I don't mean that when I say that the characters mature, I don't mean that they were immature. I just mean that they kind of find more of their place and settle into where we've been heading the whole time. Like, it's been very much like we've been building up with Fraser and Tommy as well. Fraser and Tommy, the constants, and now that we've done all this development with Fraser and Tommy, we're obviously looking and lining up. Obviously, you know, we saw that, you know, Chris got away at the end. Jack, Field is dead. Lizzie has left. They're working now on separating from UNIT and becoming their own organization, which is going to be explored in future stories as well. The whole shifting of the team is now going to change. And it's really interesting because I know that, you know, we obviously say, oh, look, it's new era. We are, in a way, it acts like, I know that you sort of treat it as, like, in terms of the plan, you have your own idea of where sections are of the story, but I see it as what we've just done is a really good trilogy.
Well, yeah, I mean, volumes 1 through 3 are a trilogy. That was kind of like where we leave off in Betrayal. Betrayal being such a big episode as well was definitely a kind of, this is the end of the first kind of phase for me, but it is a trilogy in itself of what's kind of set up from the next. I mean, Volume 1 obviously sets up the characters. Volume 2 references Volume 1 quite heavily with the whole Nexus Point thing, leading in to Volume 3, which is kind of set up by the whole of the 60th special as well, being in there, with the fact that that links back into the Nexus as well, and what happened in Torchwood Volume 1 and in between 2. And then Volume 3 very much wraps up the plot point setup of someone's betrayed us at the end of Volume 2, Lizzie's, how she's dealing with her coma sort of thing, and everything that goes along with that. And also some of the sort of things we mentioned, like I think in Volume 2, Episode maybe 2, we mentioned the fact about Fraser's parents and the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And this volume's definitely moved into kind of delving into that a little bit more. And so it's definitely setting up volumes, the future volumes we're doing. But it's not. It is a contained story effectively within itself, that leaves a cliffhanger, but you can watch it as kind of one trilogy.
Yeah, indeed, true. Yes, very true.
I think as well, in the way that way series 1 and 2 of Torchwood felt, where they felt like a kind of the same show, and then volume 3, series 3, Children of Earth, feels like a departure. It kind of feels like the end of that era, moving into the next era of like Miracle Day and such. Like, is kind of the first few episodes of that feel like the first 2 series, and then the second or the third, the last 3 episodes feel like Miracle Day's kind of series. This volume is the kind of last one that's going to feel quite like the first 2 volumes, and then the next ones are going to feel a bit more sort of Children of Earth like.
Yeah, I concur. Yes. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up?
Well, okay, we've gone through dependency, we've said about intelligence, said about retreat, said about betrayal, really. I mean, there's only so much we can say about those episodes without saying what they're leading into. So, like, we can only sort of talk about surface level things with them, even though they've already come out. Because I can, go, oh, who's Eliza? That kind of thing. There's layers to to that sort of stuff. But other than that, there's nothing really. I mean, we're working on the next volume now. So that's really it. Thank you for listening to Torchwood if you have. Sorry for all the scenes of a graphic nature. We tried to sort of keep it. Yeah, I guess that's it. Apologies for anyone who had to listen to any of those scenes. There's the scene
which
in
ones
Retreat.
they are.
Yeah, the scene in Retreat in particular. I listened to that when it was fully edited for the first time on the way to do some filming with Connor and co in October of this year, and I listened to it whilst I was ordering from a Burger King. I was stood there at the counter, and that was going on in my ear, and I was like, "Oh, good God!" But the main thing I think about is it's a Torchwood fan series that honors the original. And if you watch Torchwood, there are scenes like Owen and Diane, and Gwen and Reese, and Jack and Yanto. Like, these scenes happen in Torchwood. Yes.
I thought it was like all that the vivid like violence or something like that.
Oh no, not the violence. I'm talking about the sex, the naughty stuff.
Oh Lord. Yeah. God. Yeah. I mean, it was certainly an interesting thing to have to try and listen to with an objective mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. Nobody has to hear that or hear any of those noises isolated like I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's even weird. It's even weirder when it's just the one person making the noises.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've intruded in on a very private moment.
You're a trooper. But the thing is, though, real couples do that kind of thing as well. That is the nature of reality, and this show, Torchwood really delved into the human experience in that way. It never shied away from such things. I mean, episode 2, for God's sake, is all about sex gas. So it's one of those things that it feels important that we include it. If you take the sex and that kind of element out of Torchwood, it just becomes primeval, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to keep that level in. And also, to be fair, like listen to Volume 3. Fraser and Lizzie do barely anything this entire volume. Like, you know, he sung Elvis a few times. He deserves a break.
Yeah. Yeah, this is true. Oh, the poor man. The poor man. He suffered enough. He suffered enough. Well, in that case, then, there's nothing more to say then than to say thank you very much, Mr. James Sutton, for making yourself available to talk to me about Torchwood Clandestine Part 2.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Of course, no problem at all, no problem at all. And we return to, hopefully, myself and Sweet Daniel in the main segment of the podcast. Farewell for now.
Daniel.
Yes.
Farewell.
And welcome back to the podcast. Now I'm still here with sweet Daniel.
That's me.
Indeed. We're going to talk about the latest Sherlock Holmes audio. Shall we ever listen to the trailer?
Yes, please.
Overton Audios presents.
I hold on hope that Holmes is still alive. That he is walking amongst the smoke-filled alleys of London, waiting. Waiting for what? That only Sherlock Holmes would know. Mrs. Hudson?
Hello, John.
What are you doing here?
So, have you heard about the missing officers from the London Metropolitan?
Yes, I heard from the Strad. Someone is picking up officers off the streets.
Do you feel that?
I feel what seems to be a service revolver on my back.
Very smart, Dr. Watson. Clearly you're a man who knows their weapons. So, you know I can shoot you dead before anyone can come to your aid. This is but a prelude to the carnage that awaits the rest of the world.
Sherlock Holmes will be remembered as the greatest detective that London, I dare say, the world has ever seen. Holmes.
Hello, old friend.
We lost you, Holmes. I lost you. We mourned for you.
Sherlock Holmes, The Empty Hearse. Coming the 25th of December 2024 at 12 p.m. Wow, what an amazing trailer.
Indeed.
Indeed.
We're back, sir. We're back as Holmes and Watson in The Empty Hearse.
Indeed. It's been like, what, 2 years? I think a bit longer. Well, Volume 3 came out sort of October, November 2022, I think.
I think so. Just trying to get back on mind. Yeah, but it's just
Yeah.
we definitely wanted there to be a gap regardless. We wanted to finish off with Volume 3, leave it there for a while, and then come back when just to let that finale sit in, you know what I mean?
Yes, indeed. And we did have a brief appearance as our Holmes and Watson in the Henry Woodman into the Storybook episode, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. And it's what made me sort of think we should try and fast track a little bit The Empty Hearse, because that's a script you've had for how long now?
I've had that for quite some time. I remember like when I first started working on the Empty Hearse script, it was I started writing it when I was working in that VFX house.
Oh wow.
During when I had long renders to do, I thought, what can I do this time? I thought I'd write a little bit. And then I was also watching the old Sherlock Holmes series from it was like ITV. And just thinking like what could we do? And The Empty Hearse came to mind, and I think we just finished Volume 3 at that point, or it just came out, or it was just a year. No, yeah, it was just coming out, I think. Yeah, 2022. It was just coming out.
Oh yeah.
And I thought about like how we could do The Empty Hearse, and it literally took me about 2 years to do that script because I was on and off it for that long.
Yeah. And just to clarify as well, and this is something we're doing a little bit differently. which I have explained to a couple of people who've been interested in knowing this isn't just a Christmas special. It is the first episode of a fourth volume, but we're just not releasing it as we would do normal volumes. We're releasing them as and when we do them because it was just taking a while to set everything up, and I've got too many things to do already. We're just gonna, so we do have a second and third episode planned to complete a volume, but they won't be coming out next week or anything like that. It'll probably be every few months or so, I imagine, but I'm not saying anything for certain.
Yeah, it's that's what I think as well. Like instead of being free coming out in the space of say a week or 3 weeks, it'd be like sort of 3 episodes coming out within the course of a year.
Yes, exactly, exactly. It's a lot easier to manage that way, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and even then, if I'm honest, finishing the empty hearse, it made us come up with a few more ideas, didn't it? We had a few more concepts in mind for how to develop the Holmes and Watson relationship.
Exactly. And I'll say Volume 4 feels like a, a restart. It feels like because we're getting rid of some aspects of the older stories. Like we're now no longer doing narration. It's going
I
full.
bet you're pleased.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, like all I had to do was hear me trying to just do that narration, and
Mm.
it's the worst because of my dyslexia, and it was just the worst thing for me. I'm also I just wanted them to become full cast audios completely, so I'm happy that's there now, full casts rather than just now like we breaks of narration between.
Exactly, yeah, because it's now being played off as Watson's published works that he was reading in for.
Yeah,
In fact, you do a little bit of now, well, because obviously it's been out now for about 5 days, no, longer than that. It's been out now for about maybe nearly 2 weeks at this point. You do a bit of narration at the beginning, which leads us to believe we're going down the same route.
yeah.
But then it's revealed that you're actually reading them to the publisher, which I then like to think as a result means that every single one you've narrated, at some point you've been reading it to a publisher.
That was always my idea. Is that every time we hear Watson narrating, it was him sort of like reading it to a publisher to get published into the Strand magazine.
Yeah.
I feel like that now that it's sort of like now we're in contemporary adventures where it's now happening within real time rather than being told like after the fact.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Yeah, well, hang on. My COVID cough is about to hit. 1 second. All right, that's cleared up my throat a little bit. Oh, but yeah, one thing that I was certainly interested in, which I think looks, and everyone who's seen the cover so far, because obviously as, at the time of recording it's not out, um, everyone loves your moustache.
Yeah, I just thought I had a beard through the first 3 volumes, and now we're cutting to a few more years later. Like you've donned the sort of Peaky Blinders hat now and the glasses, and I thought I need to reinvent Watson. And what can I do other than go with the standard mustache look?
You've kind of gone with a distinguished clinician.
Yeah, I mean I got a haircut and wearing a suit now. It's like just sort of now. This is Watson now in fatherhood, grown up more, and sort of like years of our homes sort of developed him as a man.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. He's developed. You got to think as well that he's developed in a life without Sherlock for what was it, 4 years?
Yeah,
Um, and as a
totally.
result, he's no longer like there were certain things where he was going like not that he ever dressed up shabby to begin with, but he certainly changed and it, for lack of a better word, cleaned up his act a bit. He's lent more into his work at the clinic. He's a novelist now. He's got a lot of professions and talents and now genuinely published works behind him. Like he's kind
Pushed.
of evolved to be independent of
Exactly.
Sherlock Holmes.
Exactly. And also, little known fact, that's my actual mustache I grew for these
No,
photos.
that's exactly it. It's exactly it. Didn't you like you just shaved your beard and just kept the moustache?
Yeah, like because I know I thought myself I could have done just photoshopped it in, but I've got to embrace mustache Watson.
Everyone loves it. Everyone thinks you should keep it.
I think there was a point I was considering keeping it, and then I got this new job, and I wasn't too sure of it at the time to be like, I really want to be this guy who goes into starts a new job, and he's the mustache guy.
Oh, sir. But no, it looks really good on you, and it's yeah, it's really, really good. And what's also nice is we actually finally got for the first time, I think, Mrs. Hudson on a cover.
Exactly, exactly. I think that's as well what we want to do with this new volume going forward is that sort of show domestic life a bit more, like
Mm.
especially with show Mrs. Hudson more as a character, show Holmes and Watson's dynamic a bit more of it in a dynamic a domestic sort of way by introducing more of Watson's family potentially later in the volume. Like it's just to really bring the aspect of sort of domestic lifestyle to it.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I changed up the costume quite a bit as well for Sherlock Holmes. I wanted him to appear unrecognizable. I wanted it to be something when I thought so far for the last three volumes, which have taken place over roughly 12 years, he's been wearing the same waistcoat.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want it to be something where you now look at him and you would not think Sherlock Holmes. And I was trying to think about all these things going, I think I've lent into classic Sherlock for volumes one to three, into a very sort of classical style of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
You know, what whilst we've definitely kept like some original aspects that we always wanted to explore, like we certainly wanted to explore, like for example, with the Chammersmith Manor story, the finale of Volume Two. We had it be that he was, with Watson being Irish, that we explored the thoughts and, but yeah, certainly the thoughts of people of the English of the Irish.
Yeah.
And those have been unique takes we've done, but I really feel like with Sherlock moving forward at the moment, we've got a really unique opportunity to say something even more unique about both characters, which was, for example, for me to make Sherlock a little bit less presentable,
Mm.
like to have him almost swap over. Like I think we also toyed with the idea of it being, and I think ultimately this isn't the case because I feel like it would be too much of a departure. But I know we toyed with the idea of it being that volumes one to three happened, but not quite like that, because they're being told from Watson's memory of it happening. So that's why, for example, Sherlock is now wearing a similar costume to what Watson wore, was because they never actually wore those things or something like that,
Mm.
because it's all told from the perspective of the story that Watson published. But I do think they happen, and I do think they wear waistcoats. I think for episode one, it's not questioned because he's undercover.
Yeah.
But we are I do actually really like that costume variant I made for Sherlock. I like the fact that it's just you would look at him and just not think you would not think Sherlock Holmes quite.
Yeah, like it's just like you can see him like lurking, sort of like in the dark, sort of in detective mode
Yeah.
thing. And I do like the costume as well. And
Yeah, because it's I believe it's a shirt, and then I'm wearing a coat over it, and then I'm wearing a long coat over it as well. So it doesn't quite show off. Like he's still wearing the white shirt he always wore, but it's like underneath all these layers.
yeah,
But I know I've lost a lot of hair since the last Sherlock Holmes photography session I did, and I thought people in those times, especially when they start losing their hair, they wear hats.
yeah.
I just thought it made more sense. You're the one with the luscious hair, Daniel. You should be the one without the hat now, for once. That bloody hat. I'm thinking.
I'm sure.
I'm not thinking about the flat cap when I say that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like it's just a Holmes taking Watson's hat. It's like I have the hat now.
Yeah. Well, plus as well as that, because Holmes is known for wearing a hat.
Exactly. It's
So having him wearing a flat cap, especially as we're going into the 40s towards the 50s, the noir sort of stuff, which is what I adore about your cover as well. It's got the really contrasting colors. It's kind of got it's almost black and white, but not quite.
yeah.
With the lovely kind of it's like a dark navy and gold colors present there, and I really love it for that.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we took inspiration from is sort of like the sort of noir films of that period, where I think it was sort of
Mm,
like very high contrasty and very sort of in a very composition sort of way. So that's sort of like the art style as well. We're going with the covers going forward. Like what I like is what not many people notice is that the shape that Watson is in is a coffin
yeah,
in the cover,
yeah.
and it's it's something that's gone. So so everything's very it's going to look like it's a black and white sort of noir sort of take. And I think the writing and the dramatization of the stories make it look like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it looks great, honestly. I love it.
Mm. And yeah, I mean, what I sort of like when you were talking about the costumes there, it's just did you made me think of you
Mm.
started off as a sort of typical classic home style, but I think Watson was a more of a unique take in the first three volumes because it was sort of like he was very different. He wasn't the Watson we knew. But now I
Mm.
think now we're transitioning to you becoming a more unique Holmes. I'm now filling in the role of the classic Watson.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is what I'm looking forward to exploring. I really want to explore more within Holmes and Watson's relationship because we did that briefly in Volume One, where they had an argument because Sherlock's origins are the reason why he's so tactical in the way he thinks and the way he assumes people is because of his time in the war room during World War One. And it is explained that he's at his worst in Volume One, Episode One, when him and Watson do have a full argument
Mm.
about, Watson having been a soldier, been ordered about, watching his other fellow soldiers get ordered about, and sometimes to their deaths. Meanwhile, Sherlock is doing the same thing, and that was certainly a really interesting element to explore. Now, Watson isn't a soldier anymore, but he is almost like a general of his own house and life.
Exactly.
So he in himself, Watts Holmes can't just tell him to get up and do something now.
Mm.
He has to say, like, I think in episode one, it's what Watson doesn't have much choice. But the plan is for the future, at least for the next episode that I'm trying to plan out currently, is that Holmes will assume that Watson's free.
Yeah.
And then I like this idea of Watson not showing up.
Because I mean, Watson's life carried on while Holmes was away.
I think Holmes will forget that Watson has a life
Yeah.
because he's been so. Because I think even Holmes has missed the old days of Holmes and Watson solving cases, which is exactly what he hopes for and hopes happens in the Empty Hearse. In fact, with regards to this Empty Hearse episode, Watson is there defusing a bomb, you know?
Yes.
And Holmes is on top of Tower Bridge once again. Um, this time recounting everything.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I think it's just a show of like where they are in their lives, especially.
But
Yeah. Well,
Watson, if when you look at that story, Holmes is ultimately able to stop the villain, but he does stand there and let him talk. Watson's the one doing the most action.
yeah,
They complement each other in that way, and that's what I'm interested in kind of exploring is Watson is capable.
exactly. And that's why I wanted to do like Watson is capable of defusing this bomb whilst because I think that's always was the sort of relationship, especially if you look back in like the sort of history of the war where Watson was always the one in the trenches doing the action while Holmes was up negotiating.
Yes, and I was yes, there were lots of other things as well that were planning with these characters, but I'm really excited for them.
Exactly. I mean, I think I like what I like about the Empty Hearse the most is that it shows where these characters are, especially I think it shows the tone and everything that has to come with this new volume and this new style. Because I'll be honest, it doesn't even feel like it's a fourth volume. It feels like it's a start of a new series, more or less.
No, yeah, I agree. Because the whole tone has changed. I think the way that, obviously, last time we edited them, I was editing them in a completely different way as well. We've all kind of grown in terms of our storytelling abilities as well.
Yeah, but that doesn't like take away what the previous three volumes were.
No.
First three volumes had a purpose. They had their own setting. They had their own they had their own narrative, but the stories to be able to tell them in fresh new ways.
Oh yes, exactly. Yes.
But yes, speaking of stories and like how they
Oh.
on and how they change and evolve.
Yes.
We have your chat with Lewis Wheelhouse on Henry's Game.
Indeed. Shall we ever listen to that then?
We shall, yes.
Oh. Overton Audios presents
Henry Woodman, welcome back to my realm.
You brought me back?
It's been centuries since you found out about your origins. Yet you still call yourself a Time Lord.
I can't give up my son.
Then it's the end of the world.
Your son isn't real, Henry.
Don't say that!
No. Toymaker, stop this.
I have to stop you.
Henry will die. Is that the master?
And Veritas. Henry Woodman into the Storybook. Henry's Game. Coming the 1st of January 2025 at 12 p.m. And welcome back to the podcast. And I'm joined here by Mr. Lewis Wheelhouse. Hello.
Hello.
I was going to ask how you are because we usually do that, but we've already had to record this once before, just now, before it.
Yeah, this is the second recording.
Yeah, we recorded about a quarter of an hour in. I then looked and realised Lewis's audio was not being picked up at all, and so I've just been talking
Sorry
to myself.
about that.
No. I think what it was I think the internet cut out.
It was the Mad
through.
Hatter messing with the internet connection.
Yes, indeed. But yes, we're here to talk about the New Year's Day special of Henry Woodman to the Storybook, which was called Henry's Game. And again, yes. So now that because the first time around, Lewis, you've watched the trailer for the first time just before recording. Now that I've spoken to you a bit about the story, we can. I suppose this is a bit of a different version we can do, but no. So this story is taking place immediately after the 4th episode that came out in September. We're obviously recording this in September as well because we are being clever with how we're recording things. But nonetheless, the Toymaker is now in more control than ever, and has posed the ultimate question to Henry, which is: do you save your son or do you save the world?
Yes.
It's a very difficult question for Henry. It's something that very much he has to decide for himself. It's explained by the Toymaker that the Cravat Doctor was the one who won the game between episodes 1 to 4, but Henry was also involved in a player. And just because Cravat won doesn't automatically mean that by default that Henry won. So as a result, Henry still has a part to play. And this is his game. The Cravat Doctor can't help him out of this one. This is something that he has to do. And that was something I was very conscious of. You know, when we were talking about this earlier, when it came to Henry Woodman into the multiverse, there was no way he could get back to where he was from without the Cravat Doctor intervening, really. Whereas here, it's very much a similar situation to when the Trickster would make agreements with people. They had to break off the agreement, but it was the journey they had to go down in order to do it. In the last volume of Henry Woodman, which was the multiverse volume, he was told that Julia Breslin had died, and that was the first time that Henry had heard about it.
Yeah.
And was aware of it at all. And he had never found out why Cravat had avoided saying anything. At this point in his life, Cravat is by himself because he's just lost Julia. So he's avoiding talking about it at any point possible. And
I think it's a very human emotion that even humans struggle to deal with, but especially for him, he's an alien, so it's two different separate races, isn't it? So he probably mourns it in his own way, but he doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, because in this one, Henry's having to make the choice between what is real and what isn't, and he's got everyone telling him what isn't real, and he doesn't know who to trust anymore because they could be fake as well. Obviously, you've got Cravat saying Jenny Flint shouldn't be in the 21st century, so she's obviously not real. But as people who have been following Henry will know, he's currently helping the Pat Gang out who are stuck in the 21st century. And, the Doctor doesn't have context to that. So therefore, Cravat's just like, yeah, she's not real. Therefore, you can't trust anything. Henry has built up a friendship with Jen as well. He trusts Jenny Flint.
Yeah.
And he asks the same question back to the Doctor, like how does Henry know he can trust him?
Yeah.
If he's so forced and forceful in saying, no, this person is not real, Cravat needs to prove himself too. And that gives Henry the opportunity to say what happened to Julia and for Cravat to finally say it out loud.
Which is quite a big thing, really, for him, isn't it? And as well to have to prove himself to Henry, who they've both known each other for a very long time.
Mm.
But it is this moment in this episode that it takes place, and it's very honest, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very honest, yeah. And with, the Toymaker being able to recreate a son from scratch and have it be convincing to Henry, all the Toymaker would have to do is look into Henry's mind and see or just look into history and see what the Doctor was like with Henry and replicate it. It's easier to make the Doctor more believable than it is a child in that's never existed. So Henry takes control of that situation and ultimately says, you need to tell me what happened or else you're not real. And only when the Doctor says it does Henry realise that those emotions are real. All of those emotions are completely and utterly real. And it can't be replicated by the Toymaker. It's a genuine loss.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately makes and helps him decide. It's just that he has to sacrifice someone he thought was his son. And still feels like he's his son. But the son never had a name. The son just cried a lot.
And as well, it's not just a baby; it's his relationship with Jenny Flint. In which is it more harder that is maintained this like human relationship with a friend that's become. Do you know what I mean? So it's for both of them, isn't it? Really,
he's assuming in that moment that Jenny Flint and the whole stuff with the Pat Gang was all fake as well. That he's just been in this one long manipulated game, which is even more of a sad twist for him that he's now having to condemn them all. Obviously, obviously, it's revealed that all the stuff happening in Pat Gang with Jenny Flint and everything was real. It's just that this Jenny Flint, who was in the storybook, wasn't. She was made to be the one who is a mother, whereas the Jenny Flint he knows is not, and that's the only difference. So obviously at the end he gets the phone call from Jenny and he goes, Jenny Flint? She's like, yeah, what's wrong with you? And he's then having to go, oh, nothing. And then he murmurs to himself later that it must have been real. And obviously, they've been trying to get in contact with the Doctor to get the Pat Gang back to their time. And he's just messed that up.
Yeah. I've never actually asked this because it's just first time it's gone around in my brain. How long do you think Henry's been stuck in this world with, I know you can sort of work it out from how old the child is, but don't it span on a bit more? If they've been in how long has the Toymaker been playing with Henry's world?
It's never specified, but because it could have been at any time, it could have been that moment. It could have been that moment he arrived, the storybook was given, I like to think it was only a few days.
Right.
Because he wasn't actually doing anything. He wasn't playing a game.
Yeah.
He was just living with a child.
Yeah.
I like to think it was a few days of it rather than too long. Because it would have been noticed by people in the real world.
Yeah.
And
that Henry's world has suddenly just changed. He's now got a kid and etc.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that he wasn't really responding to emails and phone calls and stuff properly, that sort of thing. So there are those elements as well. But it's very much, this New Year's special is very much something Henry comes out stronger for, even though it's such a sad revelation for him.
It's really sad, yeah.
Yeah, because it's delved into Impact Gang a little bit. But his universe, his original universe, which was called Dimension 2, no longer exists as it is.
No. Basically, you're the writer for this. You put Henry through a lot of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How does your mind work? Next time we're going to put a bomb in his house and kill all his family.
Oh no.
Oh God.
Yeah, but we also pay some nice references to some very classic Overton Audio stories. With the Broadmoor Paradox, which was originally the third and fourth episodes of General Marsh Volume 1, in which a clone of Henry is placed into Broadmoor in order to trick General Marsh and Veritas into keeping time frozen. Now, obviously, in this story, Henry is being brought to this place by the Toymaker, as is Cravat, as is this other Jenny Flint, and they witness Veritas and General Marsh facing the Broken Master, as played by Luke Lane. The Toymaker is playing with Henry's mind, and he ends up watching his clone get murdered in front of him, but he doesn't know it's a clone. He thinks that's him, and he doesn't remember it, and he's made to think he's a ghost, and it's the poor man went through hell. But
come on, it needs a happy ever after eventually.
Yes.
It just goes for everything, doesn't it? It goes for all the works.
But in the end, like we say, he makes a decision. And it was the right one in the end.
I think so. Yeah.
You think so?
Hopefully. It's a difficult decision because, I don't know how I'd place myself in it. Because, would you want to kill your child? I'd probably have a panic attack and run away from it. You are not taking my child.
Yes,
go
exactly.
away.
That's why he's so defiant about it in the beginning, and it's just extremely sad for him to come to the realization that he doesn't know what his son's name is. He doesn't know who the mother of his child is. People keep saying Jenny Flint, but it's obviously not, because Jenny Flint's a lesbian. All these things are coming along that contradict his knowledge, and that's what breaks, sadly, the image of things. He's so close with Jenny Flint in a platonic sense that, sadly, the narrative that was created was that they were a couple.
So in episode 1, in first episode, before he goes and talks storybooks and stuff, he referenced the baby's crying. This has just hit me because I was listening to this back in June, and I remember saying this to myself. He says something like,
he's on the phone. He's on the phone to Jenny Flint at the beginning.
No. Before that, when the baby's crying and he goes, "There, son," and stuff like this. Is that why he calls him son? Because I remember listening to that thinking, how does he not know this child's name?
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
He doesn't know the child's name.
There you go. That's even shocked me as that.
No, he doesn't. The child doesn't have a name. That's the point. He has no idea where this child came from. He just knows this is my son.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know. And that's what breaks it, because he realizes he knows nothing, even though he's been raising this child. In his mind, he's been raising this child. Therefore, he would have named the child. Therefore, he'd know who the mother was. But he doesn't know any of these details. It's like he just stepped into a story.
I need to go back and listen to all this because I don't know. I don't think I know what I'm talking about. and I hope we've been writing with you, and I've no idea.
Yeah. Oh Lord. But it's. When you put everything together, I would encourage people to listen back to the volume and both episodes, like volumes 1 to 4, and then obviously this one. You can really see where all the clues were headed. but it was the little continuity breaks, like having a child all of a sudden, despite the fact he hasn't seen the doctor in 6 months. How did he have a child in that time and not mention it? How did he not mention? Why was he in a flat living by himself and now suddenly has a child? You know, all these things. Like he's been in so many scenarios. He would go, no, I can't die. I've got a child on the way, or anything like that. You know, but he didn't, and it was always just him. You know, like you know, like you can see it in the Pat Gang Future Outcomes 1. He sat in the car eating crisps and talking to Colonel Stevenson. He's not at home with the family. Like like those things are all just sort of subtly there, and that's what's kind of a shame. It's the what if for him.
Yeah, that's how clever Toymaker is, though, because she's really, really made Henry believe all this is real for him. While, you know, like, she has separated everybody from him, because if not, they would have snapped him back into reality much sooner. Hence why you get Cravat coming in episode 4, you know, to go, Henry, this is strange. You've never mentioned it before. And exactly,
exactly. But I think it's a very nice episode with a nice sort of reference to the old audios that I'd worked on before, because we were able to use the original audio as well. So I've just re-edited it, and almost like it's almost like a slight remastering of some of those original scenes, which has been really nice to do as well. So it's been really, really nice.
It is like those storylines where the Doctor's not there and Henry's got to make his own choice himself without the Doctor there to... We've always talked about this, haven't we? You know, about having a story for Henry where the Doctor's not there to hold his hand.
Yeah.
In a way, because Henry's always been the lighter comedic character and is always on the side. You know, like in the 60th, where it's like Henry go back to the TARDIS now, stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is Henry's... Well, it's Henry's game. It really is Henry's game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is,
You know, that makes it a really good episode.
Well, that's the thing as well. We obviously have a couple of years gap from when he was brought back to life until Multiverse. And he's something that I'd like to explore one day, but when you see him in Pat Gang, he's walking around and he's got confidence there. And you want it to be something where in the end, he's not, you know, like we're going to have stories where he can solve them himself. And that's you know, we want him to increase in confidence.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you wanted to add?
To be honest, while I've been like watching all this come out, because we just, you know, you send me a script, I record, you're very blank to it, and then you move on to the next thing. You're not aware of it, you know what I mean, don't you? The process of it. You're not really aware of how it goes down until it goes out. And like this year, for me especially, we're like Pat Gang. You know, Henry's been in Pat Gang, Volume 1, Future Outcomes, and Storybook.
Yeah.
That's it for Henry in 2024, isn't it? I think it's for a while.
Yes, I think so.
Well, with them two, it's been quite interesting to see, and, you know, in a good way, seeing how people react, like in like comment section and stuff like that. And it's just been really nice to see that people are enjoying it and like picking up on stuff. So yeah, I'm very happy that these have gone down really well. Like, there's always a part of you that thinks, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? And I think it has. I think it's worked really well. So I'm really happy with these volumes.
I agree.
And how they've turned out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worked out really, really well.
And thank you to everybody that's like commented and stuff like that and enjoyed them all, because it's nice to like sit back and see people, you know, like enjoying what we've done. You know?
Yes, of course.
It's really nice.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Well, once again, thank you again, Lewis.
You're very welcome.
And I will send our listeners back to the main podcast segment. Farewell.
I suppose at this point we can say Happy New Year, everyone, can't we?
Christ, yeah. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year! Can we sing alongside?
Yeah, it's funny.
Good old quit. Sorry.
It's like, we haven't even, we're still a month and a half away from Halloween when we're recording this.
Yes. And it's coming out on New Year's Day. It's like time's going all over the place.
Yeah. Well,
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And welcome back to the podcast. And I'm here still with Sweet Daniel. Not that that's a problem. It's lovely.
I've not left yet.
No.
Not again.
Yeah. No, but shall we have a look at what's coming soon? What's coming soon this month?
Well, shall we show the viewers of the next release, which I think is Glimpses of Gallifrey?
Yes, indeed we shall. Overton Audios presents.
I thought you'd gone.
Oh no, we're very much here to stay. Lord Rassilon should have banished your kind to the wilderness, or better still, exterminated the lot of you.
Leave me alone!
Whatever is the matter?
They were saying terrible things about me and our family.
I think that what you need is some time away from the academy. I was just thinking of a day or two. Just you and me.
When we catch up with them, what are we going to do?
I haven't decided yet. They will be left in no uncertain terms as to how things stand.
You don't mean to resort to violence?
Susan was right. We should have gone to Arcadia instead.
Glimpses of Gallifrey 1. A Holiday to Remember. Coming the 11th of January 2025 at 12 p.m. And that's the trailer for it, coming out on the 8th of January. So about 2 days after this is out, this podcast.
Very exciting. I think that this is one you brought up to me late in the game. I think it was like last month. Is when I heard about this.
Yes, so Michael Cox wrote 2 scripts just called Glimpses of Gallifrey. And I really was aiming to try and have this out, or at least part 1, out on the 8th of January, but there was just no way I could keep up with having everything come out so quickly again.
Yeah.
So we have the trailer come out on the anniversary, and then on the 11th and the 18th of January, we have parts 1 and 2 come out. The overall story is called A Holiday to Remember. It's a holiday between the First Doctor and Susan on Gallifrey. They find the First Doctor's getting overwhelmed working at the archive, and Susan is being bullied at the academy, and they need some time away, and when they do so, things do not quite go their way, shall we say? But it's an interesting one. I'm very much looking forward to everyone hearing it. It's filled with Gallifrey lore, which is always lovely. Lovely.
That Gallifrey lore.
Indeed. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to people hearing it. It's a very last minute one, like you said, sort of September it came about. And I'm currently, as of recording this right now, I still haven't fully edited it, just because I've been trying to create a backlog of editing that I could do over Christmas. Fingers crossed I get the time to do it, or else I'm ruined. Quite literally. So yeah, fingers crossed. But we'll get there. I've looked at the stories. They're quite simple to edit, really. It will be nice and fun at the end of the day, and it will get there. It will get there, indeed. Yes. How many times can I keep saying yes before I've convinced myself?
Well, here's the thing. So by the time this podcast has come out, you would have done it.
Oh, magical. Oh,
just transport yourself to where this podcast is being released.
Yes, indeed. And Christmas will have happened, and we'll be in 2025.
Halfway through this decade and approaching the 5-year mark of this podcast.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll do anything. I don't know. I don't know.
We'll
And also, do you know what's weird as well? I've not even thought about this yet.
You'll probably be here by the time we have to record that podcast.
Oh God, yeah, I will, won't I? But the other thing I was thinking was, the monthly vlog won't be happening.
That's true.
Because I've still got 2 weeks left of the monthly vlog now. By the time this comes out, the monthly vlog will have been over for a week.
It's weird teleporting. You have to mentally teleport yourself now to that time.
I can't. It's weird. The monthly vlog's always been there. What do I do without it? Help me! I've been doing the monthly vlog for so long. I will sometimes, I know for the next couple of months, I'll be pausing to think, maybe I'll film a clip of this and go, why?
try and get yourself out of that habit of doing it.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that 1 second every day thing. You know that I've done a couple of times.
That'd be nice.
The 1 second every day is easy because it's not vlogging. It's just filming one clip per day.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's manageable. That might be nice to do.
Will chatters do it 1 second every day? Only time will find. Only time will see that. Well, I can't speak anymore. Only time will figure it out.
Only time will feel. Only time will see. You mean
only time will see? Yes.
Yes. What about telling, Daniel? Will time tell?
Only time will tell. Yes, that's what it was. Thank you. That is now forever documented on this bloody. Anyways,
I don't know what you were thinking.
I don't know either. Okay, shall we say goodbye to the dearest viewers of ours and take break for Christmas?
Yes, indeed. Even though everyone else has had Christmas, but nonetheless, we'll be coming back with the comments reading. It's been very obvious we haven't done any comments reading. It's because the Alacrity first volume has only just come out. I wanted to give it time for people to read the comments before we record. We usually record probably in about 2 weeks' time from now, but that is also the festivity time, so it doesn't make sense to.
Exactly.
So next podcast, we'll read in the comments for Alacrity Volume 1, and we'll push to do Torchwood Clandestine II as well.
Very good, sir.
Indeed,
anyway,
indeed.
So chatters, I hope you have, or in this case, had a good Christmas.
Oh, thank you. You too. I hope you had a good Christmas and had a good New Year as well.
Indeed. And coincidentally, I hope all of you had a good Christmas at home.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
We'll see you guys. We'll see you all next month.
See you all later. Farewell, everyone.
Bye.